This morning we are going to. I was like, God, what route do you want to go? Because I so loved the approach that Pastor Leslie took last year. This time where we can get really scattered, and I'll show some pictures up here momentarily, just not yet. But we can get really scattered and overwhelmed as we approach each new season of life. And I think it just naturally comes every new year. And so there's, just a sense of what do I need to be focused on for this next year. And what I want to do today is I thought about just doing a carbon copy, literally reading Pastor Leslie's notes all over again because it was so good. But I decided otherwise. We're going to do something a little bit different. I'm still going to help us with the one word because I think it is important to not have 12 things that you want to do in 2016 or 16 things to do in 2016, but rather to hone in on a select few. And what we're going to strive to do and what I'm going to try to encourage you in is landing on that one thing. And the nice thing about it is as many days as God gives us, we can keep adding to those one things. And so I don't think we're ever done in that process of honing in and leaning into what God wants to do. The question or the statement that I'd like to start off with this morning is, what you search for reveals who you are. What you search for reveals who you are. And what really, inspired that thought or helped me get to that thought was looking at what people search for online. And Google has, I don't know when they started it. It couldn't be too long because Google hasn't been around for that long. But they started gathering all the information of what were the top searches in 2015. Now, I think it's a fascinating study because what you search for reveals your heart and who you are. And so as a nation, now I could have done this globally, but I figured let's just stick with the United States to see who we are. And so before I share those, this concept of trending, I actually it was a long time for me to understand what trending meant. And really, if you just look it up in a couple different, don't go to urbandictionary.com. Literally don't go there because it's just definitions of weird words and whatnot. But at the urbandictionary.com, you'll find that trending is just a current and relevant way to say what is currently popular. And so when I was starting to wrap my head around what's trending, the reason why it was perplexing to me is because when I would learn what was currently trending, I was kind of like, really? This is what is currently popular. And it changes almost on the day, and it could change from hour to hour. Now, when I started getting into this whole, what's trending right now, I would find stuff like kittens playing with seahorses or something random. What does this have to do with anything? Or like dolphins weaving or something crazy, right? You're just like, this is what's trending in the world today. And I just didn't get the point. But as I started to think about it a little bit more, the things that are trending really do reveal what we are intrigued by and what we're interested in. And so I went to Google, and I was curious what the top searches were, and I just kept it to the top 3 because there's some other ones that are just kind of like, whatever. But the one that had the most searches online were the attacks in Paris. They had it was almost 900 million searches about wanting information about the attacks on Paris. The next one came in at 483 million hits, which was Adele. And her new album that she just came out. Now that's really impressive if you think about it because it only came out in maybe late October, November, I think is when it officially came out. And so in that span of time before 2015 wrapped up, 480 million hits on researching her album. And then the third one was about 430 million searches on the Oscars. Now, did anybody in here search for any of those things? Paris, Adele, or the Oscars? See, I'm wondering, like, who are these people? The Paris one I can understand, but really it was showing me, and if we went down the list of the other ones that were highly searched, I mean, it really does give you a synopsis of what was intriguing to our country and to the people of this country. And so I started thinking, what we search for is oftentimes circumstantial as well. Aren't we intrigued by what's going on around us and what's really happening? Any of you ever see or hear ambulances and then see a few helicopters? How many of you have in that moment typed in your location and Googled what is happening in Lorain, Ohio right now? I mean, I've done that. We took Hannah to a soccer game, and they had just at the next street over from this field of hundreds of kids, they had a street barricaded off, and they had 2 or 3 helicopters flying around this home that was just on the other side of the fence of the soccer fields. And so Summer and I were like, what is going on and I forget what town it was, and apparently there was like a hostage situation while soccer games are going on. And I was like, what is happening? Why are people not telling us what's going on? And so it's circumstantial, what we search for. If you, I didn't find searches for family fellowship on Google at all. It wasn't even on the top 10. You know, maybe we'll get there one day. But another thing that Google did is they compiled a list of the top 10 how-to for 2016. Do y'all want to know what people are wanting to know how to do or what they're wanting to know how to do in 2016? Y'all want to know? This is America, okay? This is America looking into 2016. How to get rid of stress was number 1. That's a good one. You'll be surprised by number 2. How to make kale chips. I want to reduce stress, but I really got to know how to make kale chips as well. How much water should I drink to lose weight was number 3. Number 4 was really interesting. How to write a resignation letter. That's a top search on how-to for 2016. Now the next, I just don't get the next 6. How to cook lentils, how to cook cabbage, how to write a letter of recommendation, how to cook collard greens, how to steam broccoli, how to crochet a beanie for number 10. Those are the top focuses of people for 2016. Did any of you Google that? Okay, we're good. All right, we're in good company because I can show you how to steam some mean broccoli. You know what I'm saying? I can hook you up. What's interesting about these, though, as I've said a couple times already, searches expose the heart. And so with all the searching conversation that we're talking about here, it applies well to what we're talking about today. I don't know if maybe we've not articulated it really well, but we've been leading up to this day no different than what we've led up to Christmas Eve. We've been leading up to this day, and some of you might feel stressed about this day because you know today is about the one word for 2016. And so I was like, maybe there's some people, and maybe it's not even about the word, maybe you're just overwhelmed by 2016 and just what we prayed about earlier. I'm just tired of feeling stuck, and I'm overwhelmed because I feel stuck, and everything feels the same. And here we are, we're singing about in Christ, He's made me new, and I'm a new creation. I'm singing it, but it doesn't feel legit because I don't see it happening in my life. And so here's some pictures to maybe capture what some of you guys are feeling. Some of you might feel this way about 2016. Go ahead and just scroll through. These are fascinating. This is a trike with a vehicle on it. Clearly that guy's loaded with tires. some baskets to carry some groceries, I suppose. How many of you feel like these pictures sometimes with life? That's what happens when you get overloaded. You're going to lose your load. That one's really interesting. Loads of wood. And then finally, what it does is it leads to this kind of outlook where your mind has all kinds of different things going on and it's going in different directions. So not only do you not have one thought, you have a variety of thoughts going in a variety of directions. And then it goes to this. I smile to hide how completely overwhelmed I am. Some of you might do that. You're like, how are you doing? I'm doing so good. If you respond that way, I'll just know that you're not. How's life? Life is so good. Everything's fine. And then you go in your car and you have a breakdown. So we can get overwhelmed by these things, but I want to encourage you not to be overwhelmed. I'm going to really simplify this. And you might be thinking that I'm being a little bit melodramatic about this. Like, seriously, Josh, it's just one word. It's not that big of a deal. But for some, we need to understand that there's all kinds of people in here right now. So don't get overloaded. We're also going to get the help from a guy by the name of Solomon today. So we're going to look in Proverbs chapter 2. And throughout the day, you might have already come in today knowing what your word is. Some of you might get your word while the message is going on right now. Some of you might not get the word until later on this week. Don't make 2016 about one word. Just make it about pursuing Christ. Okay? A word helps, and it helps refine and focus and all those things. But don't get all tweaked out and bent out of shape because you don't have a word. Just let your word be Jesus and pursue Him 2016. But for those of us that might be a little bit more OCD and we want to hone in on, well, yes, I'm pursuing Jesus, but what does Jesus want me to pursue specifically for 2016? We're going to read a letter from Solomon to his, it's a letter to his son, and these are words of wisdom that, I don't know about you guys, but I love reading through Proverbs. It's timeless, so is the rest of Scripture, but it's really fascinating, the truths that are found in here, and we truly get a sense that Solomon really was granted what he asked for, which was just godly wisdom. And so we're going to read 10 or 11 verses, and I'm going to do what I typically do, where the first go at it is more like a sprint, and then we're going to go back around and do a stroll, okay? So that's kind of like my method. We're going to sprint and then stroll. It's a good form of exercise, by the way, too. Try it sometime. Sprint and stroll, all right? My son, if you accept my words and store up my commands within you, turning your ear to wisdom and applying your heart to understanding. And if you call out for insight and cry aloud for understanding, and if you look for it as for silver and search for it as for hidden treasure, then you will understand the fear of the Lord and find the knowledge of God. It doesn't say, then you will discover your one word. It just says you will find the knowledge of God. For the Lord gives wisdom, and from His mouth come knowledge and understanding. He holds victory in store for the upright. He is a shield to those whose walk is blameless. For He guards the course of the just and protects the way of His faithful ones. Then you will understand what is right and just and fair, every good path. For wisdom will enter your heart, and knowledge will be pleasant to your soul. Discretion will protect you, and understanding will guard you. So I know that we're looking for a focus, but here in these passages, we are given some really simple, usually it's really simple in my mind, simple approaches to refining our focus and gaining understanding and gaining wisdom, gaining knowledge, gaining discernment on how to live our life. And this isn't just about a yearly thing, like, okay, so January 1st, 2nd, or 3rd, I'm going to do this reassessment so that I'll know how to live my life. No, this is a lifestyle. This isn't a year style. This is an ongoing thing. And all joking aside, well, I haven't even said the joke yet, so all joking aside, can't even say it. we could probably read this every Sunday for the rest of the year. As with any other passage, we could look at it from all kinds of angles and need the reminder of what we're about to look at today. And so word by word, I have up here on the screen, I'm going to kind of spoil the fun here, but for the first 5 verses, those are the words that we're going to look at. Now you might be like, okay, all those pictures about feeling overwhelmed, that's overwhelming. Are we going to spend like 10 minutes on each of those? Because that's like an hour and a half. I've got stuff to do. Don't worry, we're going to get through. We're going to be fine. But these words are really important for us. One of these words might be your word. Okay? So here we go. Verse 1. To accept. My son, if you accept my words. He's saying to take. In the dictionary, it's this long list of to take. And then they have like what to take. And so it's literally like 8 to 9 things where they're like to take this, to take this, to take this. And so the overall impression when he's saying, my son, if you accept. And it's an invitation to take what is being given to you. Take hold of it. Take hold of it, lay hold of it, and keep it. It's not like what some of us might do where we take it and then we forget what we've taken. He's saying, no, take hold of it. There are things, like even now, go through your mind and think about the things that you have taken hold of. One of the most frustrating things, it's funny that we're talking about this, people say, grab life by the horns, take hold of life. I think that's kind of this frustrating misnomer. Like, are you really able to take hold of it? I think that you can take hold of your responses and your reactions and your disciplines, but to literally take hold of life is going to happen. But how you navigate life, that's what you can take hold of. So Solomon, he's saying, son, accept what I'm giving you. If you accept my words, the things that I'm writing for you or to you, the things that I'm saying to you, accept them. I don't know what the day will be or when it will happen. I'm trusting that God will show it to me. But for both Hannah and Aubrey, I've got 2 journals, and both of them are specific to each child. And at some point, I'm going to give them these journals. They're not empty. What I've been doing is I've been writing words to them. And just periodically, whether it's a memory of that I don't want them to forget, or if it's something that I see in them, I'll try my best to sit down and write those things out, because I want them to hear their dad's words over their life. I want them to understand how I see them first. Not what the world or what other boys say or what other people say about them. I want them to know from their dad that they're beautiful, that they're smart, that that there are endless things before them that they can step into. So what he's saying here, son, you please grab hold of, take hold of my words. Because other than me, God is the only one that has better words than what I have for you. Take hold of these words. And he says, secondly, store up my commands. This is kind of one of those where hoarding is okay. I don't know if you've seen those shows where people hoard, and if you have excessive stuff, I'm not slamming that. You're justified. You have your reasons for it. But this is where hoarding is okay. He's saying, store up my commands. Be obsessive about keeping it. Don't let it go. There's a difference, as I already said, there's a difference of taking hold of something. Don't we take hold of, our car keys? And then we forget where we put them. Or Summer, she's got her phone one moment, and then the next moment she's like, where's my phone? Now, I'm not saying that we need to store these things in a safe place so that we know where they are, but we have this habit of misplacing things. Does anybody misplace things? What we should not ever misplace are the commands that God gives us. and that are spoken over our life, don't misplace those things, but rather find some place that you can store these things. I'm not telling everybody, not everybody journals, not everybody writes, but it's fun to be preaching and then seeing people take notes, because that's their way of storing what in this moment that God is giving them. Don't feel bad if you're not taking notes. Some of you just have one of those like photographic memories, and you just remember how handsome Josh looked on that particular Sunday, and you remember the profound words that he was saying that one Sunday, right? The picture that I had in my mind, because we have children, we watch a bunch of cartoon movies and everything, and I don't remember what the movie is, but I kind of picture this greedy chipmunk that's like got all kinds of just food, right? And it's like got that mischievous giggle because of how much he has, like that's how we should be with God, what he gives us. Like just giddy and excited and like, no, this is mine. You got yours, I got mine. This is my storehouse right here. And we should be that way. And I know that's silly and whatnot, and if you don't appreciate the childness of it, then just, you need to. Verse 2, he goes on to this. He goes on to saying, turning your ear. So, accept my words. Store up my commands. Turn your ear to wisdom. Make your ear attentive. Incline your ear. Tune your ear, or tune and turn your ear to wisdom. And so I was really intrigued by this because some of the descriptives of this it was skill for war, wisdom in administration, and prudence were the words attached to this turning. We can't be flippant with the things that God gives us, because He's equipping us for a war that though it may not physically be seen, it is certainly seen in a spiritual realm. And so this accepting and storing and turning to wisdom, we are in a war, y'all, in case we forget that. We forget that too often, that we are in a spiritual battle. And so these aren't just imperative for 2016. These are imperative for the warfare that's going on over your very soul. So the turning to wisdom is paramount. He says, apply your heart to understanding. Now listen how eclectic this word apply is in the Hebrew language. It means to incline, decline, bend down, turn aside, hold out, stretch out, extend. It sounds like yoga. Apply these things. So why all of this contorting? What is with that? What I got settled in my mind was, I want to get in whatever posture possible to receive and to apply what God is wanting to do in my life. I want to make room. I want to make room if that requires me to kneel down, then I'll kneel down. If that requires me to raise my hands, if that requires me to bend sideways, I don't care what I got to do. I want to apply what God has given me. And just like yoga, because I've done it, seriously, I've done it. I heard a few snickers like, right, you do yoga. It's super uncomfortable. And it exposes your weaknesses. Yoga has a way of exposing your weaknesses, balance, your flexibility, all these things. Can we take those concepts in the literal yoga and apply that spiritually to our lives? How flexible and bendable and balanced are you? We need to be able to be pliable so that we can apply the things that we're receiving from God. Moving on, verse 3, and if you call out for insight and cry aloud for understanding. To call out literally means to recite and read, to utter in a loud sound, to commission. He's saying, call out for insight. We don't have to be quiet all the time. Now, I think it is appropriate. We need to understand when it's appropriate or not. And so, right now, if somebody's like, I want insight, the only one that's appropriate for that to do is me, okay? If y'all do that, I'm just going to have to kick you out of church because it's disruptive. But we need to call out for wisdom and insight. I know there are some people that have a prayer closet. Maybe you don't have a prayer closet. Maybe you just need to wait for everyone to go get groceries so that you're home alone and then start shouting out for insight. God, I want insight on my marriage. God, I want insight on my mind. I want insight on my decisions. I want insight on where my focus is. Call out. And what you'll find is that you have a gracious God who gives it to you. Though we may not recognize it immediately, He is giving it to you. God is not some cruel ruler in heaven that's just dangling promises over us, and as we pursue them, He just moves the carrot. That's not what He's doing. He's so much more gracious than that. He wants us to have a full life. He wants us to... I was going through, this is what was interesting. Where I started with this whole study is I started going through the Bible and I was looking at the words that God spoke to people, like in their first interaction with God, starting with Adam and then working the way down the line. You know what was a common thread with what God would say to people? Be fruitful and multiply. You want a one word or two word from God? Be fruitful and multiply. That's what He said. That's what He spoke over His creation. Be fruitful and multiply. So He doesn't want us to be quiet and yeah, there's contentment, but I think that there are some areas where we should never be content. And that is our drive and our yearning to understand God. And not only to understand Him, but to receive from Him. I don't ever want to stop receiving from Him. I will never, yes, He fills me up. But guess what? I'll never be completely full until I am face to face with Him. So call out. If you have no need to call out, then you're living too comfortably. Just my opinion. If you have no need to call out and to cry out to God, then you are living more than likely by your own understanding and your own wisdom, your own devices. He says, cry aloud, lift up your voice. So verse 3 is clearly all about volume and being vocal. You should try this sometime. How many of you have thoughts in your head, but you're afraid to verbalize them? Thank goodness that He placed something in us called a filter. I don't know what it's called a brain, but we have a filter, right? Because thank goodness that we don't just, now some people do this where they just say what they think. And you're like, oh, you're one of those. You're one of those people. We have a filter, but have you ever spoken something that was a thought and you needed to hear yourself say it? Or when you did say it, you're like, oh my goodness, I can't believe I really thought that. Even this morning, I was being reminded of what takes place in here. It's good for me to be reminded that it's the power of God that changes lives and His Word, not the wit and the strategy of a communicator. And I wrote that on my board. And I spoke it so that I would hear myself declare and say what is true. It's the power of God that changes us. Let's do this, church, and we might have to cut some of these verses short here, but let's do this. Can we all in unison just say, it's the power of God that changes us? On the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. Okay, now you said it. Now I want you to yell it. Not like crazy yell, but just like in a louder tone. Say, it's the power of God that changes us. Something so simple as that truth we have to be reminded of. And the same thing is we need to apply to, I don't know what to do in this situation. Sometimes you literally just need to say, God, I don't know what to do in this situation. You need to call it out. Call out your inefficiency. Call out the fact that you don't have all the answers. You have to remind yourself, oh yeah, I forgot, I don't have all the answers. And sometimes you need to get on your knees and kneel down in front of a chair and just say, God, I need you. And when I say I need you, I need your wisdom. I need your insight. I need your understanding. Because by myself, I'm falling way, way short. He goes on, he says, look for it as if for silver. Search for it as for hidden treasure. Then you will understand the fear of the Lord. So this whole looking and searching, the search part is a really interesting one because he's literally saying, disguise yourself. To search is being undercover. I want to seek this thing out and see, I want to test the waters a little bit. I think God is okay with that. How many different times did men come to the line of water? I guarantee you that when Moses put his rod in there, there was a little bit of testing the water. Like stirring the water with the stick. Now, he wasn't in disguise, but there's just a little bit of, is this really going to happen? God created us. He knows that we're going to be that way. So just search it out a little bit. The wisdom that you believe you've received from God, just try it out a little bit in faith. And Solomon, after all of these things, he says this, and I'm going to wrap this up in a nice little bundle here, okay? I'm just going to read verses 6 through 11. Now, after doing all of the accepting and storing, turning and applying, calling out, crying aloud, looking and searching, in verse 5, he says, then you will understand the fear of the Lord and find the knowledge of God. So this is the aftermath of all the things that we've just walked through. The Lord gives wisdom. He's a generous giver. If you don't believe me, read James. It talks about giving wisdom generously. From his mouth come knowledge and understanding. Do you know in the most what's blatant right here? We can say, oh, that's so great that he gives us wisdom or knowledge and understanding. But you know what's more fascinating than the knowledge and understanding is the fact that it says from his mouth. From his mouth. What does that mean? That he's speaking to you. I don't know how many conversations I've had throughout the course of my life in ministry where people are like, I just want to hear God. Right here he's saying, from his mouth will come knowledge and understanding. God is so gracious that he's not just like throwing it at us, but he will whisper it to us. He holds victory in store for the upright. He is a shield to those whose walk is blameless, for he guards the course of the just and protects the way of his faithful ones. Then you will understand what is right and just and fair, every good path. It kind of sounds like Proverbs chapter 2, verse 9 would be a great 2016 verse that you would want to write on your mirror. Having done all of this, then you will know what is right and just and fair, and you will know every good path. Do you want to know every good path for the course of your life? Of course you do. We have a God who's gracious enough that He will shed the light on the right paths that we should venture down. And not only are they just paths, When Scripture says that they're good, they're better than what we can think of for ourselves. They are genuinely, truly, purely good for us and for others. He's like, this is how it's going to happen. For wisdom will enter your heart, and knowledge will be pleasant to your soul. Discretion will protect you, and understanding will guard you. And so all of these things, wisdom and understanding, knowledge, these will guide your life.